Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating and honestly kind of unsettling quirk of human perception. You know, we all love to believe that we see reality exactly as it is, right? Like it's just this objective, unchanging landscape out there. But behind the scenes, your brain is actually quietly editing and filtering your entire world. And what we're going to look at today is a perfect example of how our minds are constantly curating our reality in some really strange, really quiet ways. So, I want you to think back to a super specific but incredibly common experience. Imagine you just learned a brand new word for the very first time, or maybe you were checking out a specific model of a car that you'd honestly never even heard of before. You close the dictionary or you walk off the car lot and then, boom, out of nowhere you start seeing it absolutely everywhere. It's suddenly on a massive billboard during your commute, it casually pops up in a conversation with a coworker, you sit down to relax, crack open a book, and there it is again, literally on the very first page you read. You have to stop and ask yourself, what are the odds? I mean, really? You pause, look around, and think, what are the actual chances of this happening right now?
Now, your very first thought in that moment is almost always that it means something. It feels incredibly uncanny, doesn't it? It feels deeply significant, almost like the universe is trying to send you a direct sign or some sort of hidden message. But, well, I hate to break it to you, it isn't. What's actually happening is one of the strangest, most fascinating tricks your brain plays on you, and it does the whole thing entirely without asking your permission. And once you understand the mechanics behind this little trick, I promise you, you're going to start noticing it everywhere too.
This experience actually has an official name. It's called the frequency illusion, or sometimes you'll hear it referred to as the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon. Here is the absolute key insight you've got to grasp. That new word, that specific car, or that obscure idea, it didn't suddenly multiply in the physical world. It was always around you. It was existing at roughly the exact same frequency as it always had been. What changed is not the world around you. Actually, what changed is your attention.
Think about it like this. Every single second, your brain is bombarded with just an incalculable amount of data. Sights, sounds, colors, it's endless. To keep you from totally short-circuiting, your brain acts like a ruthless bouncer, tossing everything it deems unimportant into a giant bucket labeled background noise. But the very moment something becomes personally relevant to you, like that new car you were just researching, your brain flags it as VIP. It marks it as important, and once it's flagged, it stops filtering it out. That's why it feels brand new, even though it was hiding in plain sight the whole time.
So how does this actually work? It's basically a tag team effort between two completely separate psychological processes that are working in perfect harmony. Step 1 is selective attention, which is where your brain first flags the item. Step 2 is confirmation bias, where your brain actually begins hunting for it. And Step 3 is the feedback loop, where the illusion just takes on a life of its own. Let's look under the hood to really understand what's going on here.
All right, step 1 is selective attention. Once your brain tags something as relevant, it becomes powerfully primed to notice it. Have you ever been at a loud, crowded party? There's this massive wall of background chatter that your brain is actively filtering out. You aren't consciously analyzing any of those distant conversations, right? But then, someone 10 feet away casually mentions your name. Instantly you hear it. Your brain, which wasn't paying attention to that conversation at all, had your name flagged as highly relevant. It caught it in the filter and brought it right to your conscious mind. That is exactly selective attention at work with your newly learned word or that new car. So here is the crucial point. What happens next? Step 2 is confirmation bias. Because of that selective attention, you notice the pattern once or twice, and suddenly your brain shifts gears. It starts actively expecting to see it again. You're now subconsciously hunting for it. And guess what? Because you're looking for it, you find it. Every single new sighting reinforces your brain's brand new belief that this thing is happening way more often than it used to. Your brain is basically yelling, "See, there it is again! I told you it was everywhere!" Even when, statistically speaking, absolutely nothing has changed in the real world. Together, these effects create this incredibly powerful feedback loop. You notice it once, you expect it more, and you notice it again.
Now, hearing all this, you might be thinking your brain is, well, a little bit broken. This might feel like a glitch in our cognitive software, but it's absolutely vital to reframe this. This mental trick is actually a feature, not a bug. We didn't evolve to be these perfect, objective, truth-seeking machines. We evolved to survive. Just imagine if your brain actually treated every single piece of sensory information with equal, objective importance. You would be overwhelmed instantly. You'd be entirely unable to function, just completely buried under an endless stream of irrelevant, trivial detail.
To put it in perspective, imagine the difference between a massive floodlight and a targeted spotlight. If your attention was a floodlight,
taking in everything equally. You'd just be blinded by the sheer volume of data. Instead, your brain evolved a highly efficient spotlight. This spotlight system prioritizes whatever seems personally significant to you right in this moment. Historically, that might have been a potential physical threat or a new opportunity for food. Today, it might just be something your conscious mind recently decided was interesting. The frequency illusion is really just our natural prioritization system proudly showing its work. It proves your attention is a spotlight, moving rapidly toward whatever you've recently told it matters. And once you're aware of this effect, you start to realize it extends way beyond just fun vocabulary words or cool cars, but it also has some more serious impacts. Consider what happens when you learn about a rare medical condition. Suddenly, you feel absolutely convinced that you, or maybe everyone you know, might be displaying symptoms of it. This version of the illusion has a real cost because it can fuel completely unnecessary anxiety. Or think about dipping your toes into some new political terminology. Suddenly, literally every pundit on TV is using that exact same phrase. This phenomenon actually massively shapes how we experience the modern digital world, particularly when it comes to news and social media. Let's say you learn about a brand new political controversy. The very next day, your social feed seems completely saturated with it. It feels like the whole world is talking about nothing else. Now, to be fair, in the digital age, external algorithms are definitely doing some of that work by feeding you exactly what you engage with. But your own internal attention filter is doing plenty of the heavy lifting too. The silicon algorithm and your biological algorithm are basically working hand in hand to convince you that this topic is suddenly the most common thing on Earth.
Which brings us to a pretty profound realization about how we consume information. This illusion is the exact reason why personal anecdotes always feel vastly more convincing to us than actual statistical facts. Think about it. A pattern that you personally notice through the spotlight of your own selective attention feels visceral. It feels undeniably, deeply real. On the other hand, statistics are just cold numbers on a page. Even when those numbers are an infinitely more accurate description of reality, our brains are biologically wired to trust the shiny, highly visible pattern that our own spotlight just illuminated. So what's the big takeaway from all of this? It's simply that your internal gut sense of how common something is not a reliable measurement of reality. It's really just a byproduct of what your spotlight recently locked onto. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean every pattern you notice is fake. Some trends are very real, for sure. But the feeling of noticing a pattern is not, all by itself, actual evidence that the pattern is meaningful, or that it's mathematically increasing out there in the real world. Because look, we are constantly navigating a world that our own brains are actively filtering for us behind the scenes. So before you confidently conclude that a certain car, a buzzword, or a new trend is suddenly everywhere, I want you to use this as a tool. Pause for just a second, step back from the illusion, and ask yourself this one simple question. Did the world actually change overnight, or did my attention just start pointing somewhere new? Keep that question in your back pocket. It just might change the way you see the world.